When most people hear the name El Salvador, their minds might instantly conjure up images of endless golden beaches, dramatic volcanoes rising above the clouds, and vibrant sunsets painting the Pacific horizon. But if you think El Salvador is just about its breathtaking natural beauty, you're only scratching the surface. There's a whole other story here. A story of resilience, struggle, and transformation that's unfolded over the last 100 years. This is a country where the land itself seems to remember every chapter, from the bustling city streets of San Salvador to the quiet, wind-swept shores where fishermen still cast their nets as they have for generations. El Salvador's history is packed with surprises, twists and turns that have shaped not just the nation, but the lives of millions. It's a place where tradition and change are always in conversation, where the past is never far from the present. From the colorful festivals that light up the streets, to the quiet moments of daily life, every corner of El Salvador tells a story. And behind every smile, every dance, every meal shared with family, there's a legacy of endurance and hope. So, let's take a journey back in time. Let's rewind a full century and uncover what really happened in El Salvador over the last 100 years. Imagine the world in the 1920s. The air thick with the scent of coffee, the streets alive with the sounds of horse-drawn carts and market vendors. El Salvador was a very different place then, but the seeds of its future were already being sown. In the 1920s, coffee wasn't just a drink, it was the lifeblood of El Salvador's economy. The country's rich volcanic soil made it perfect for growing some of the world's finest beans, and coffee quickly became the main export, fueling the nation's growth. Plantations stretched as far as the eye could see, and entire communities depended on the harvest. For many, the rhythm of life was set by the seasons of planting and picking. But while coffee brought wealth to the country, that prosperity was far from evenly shared. The riches from coffee flowed mostly into the hands of a small group of powerful landowners, while the majority of Salvadorans, especially those in rural areas, struggled to get by. Families worked long hours for little pay, and opportunities for education or advancement were scarce. This growing divide between rich and poor created deep tensions, as more and more people began to question why so few had so much, while so many had so little. The seeds of unrest were quietly taking root. In 1932, those tensions erupted in a dramatic and tragic way. Thousands of peasants, many of them indigenous, rose up in protest against the harsh conditions and inequality they faced. The government responded with brutal force, crushing the uprising in what became one of the darkest chapters in El Salvador's history. It's estimated that tens of thousands lost their lives in the violence that followed, a wound that would scar the nation for generations. The memory of this event, known as La Matanza, still echoes in the collective consciousness of El Salvador today. In the aftermath, military governments seized control, ushering in decades of political tension and authoritarian rule. The army became a powerful force in Salvadoran life, shaping everything from politics to daily routines. Elections were often marred by fraud and intimidation, and dissent was rarely tolerated. For many Salvadorans, these were years of uncertainty and fear, as the promise of democracy seemed to slip further and further away. Yet, even in these difficult times, the spirit of the people endured. Families found ways to celebrate, communities came together, and hope quietly persisted. By the 1980s, the simmering tensions finally boiled over into full-scale civil war. For 12 long years, El Salvador was torn apart by violence as government forces and rebel groups battled for control. The conflict touched every corner of the country. Villages were destroyed, families were separated, and more than 75,000 people lost their lives. The scars of war ran deep, leaving behind a legacy of trauma and loss. But even in the darkest days, there were stories of courage and solidarity, neighbors helping neighbors, communities standing together, and a longing for peace that refused to die. When peace was finally signed in 1992, it marked a new beginning for El Salvador. Democracy began to take root, and for the first time in decades, people could dream of a better future. But the challenges were far from over. The wounds of war were slow to heal, and poverty remained a stubborn obstacle. In the cities, new problems emerged. Gangs took hold in many neighborhoods, bringing fear and uncertainty to daily life. Yet, through it all, Salvadorans showed remarkable resilience, working tirelessly to rebuild their communities and create opportunities for the next generation. In 2001, El Salvador made a bold move to stabilize its economy by switching its currency from the colon to the US dollar. The hope was that this change would bring greater financial security and attract foreign investment. For many, it was a time of adjustment. Old bills disappeared, and new ones took their place. Some worried about losing a piece of their national identity, while others saw it as a step toward a more prosperous future. The transition wasn't easy, but it marked another chapter in El Salvador's ongoing story of adaptation and change. Fast forward to 2021, and El Salvador once again captured the world's attention by becoming the first country to make Bitcoin legal tender. This groundbreaking decision sparked debate both at home and abroad. Supporters saw it as a chance to leap into the future, embracing technology and innovation to solve old problems. Critics worried about the risks and uncertainties. But for many Salvadorans, especially the younger generation, it was a symbol of hope, a sign that their country was willing to try new things and carve out its own path in the world. Bitcoin ATMs popped up in cities and towns, and people began experimenting with digital wallets, eager to see what the future might hold. Today, El Salvador is a country in motion, a place where old traditions and bold experiments exist side by side. In the heart of San Salvador, you'll find bustling markets filled with the sounds of marimbas and the aroma of pupusas. While just around the corner, young entrepreneurs are launching tech startups and exploring the possibilities of cryptocurrency. Festivals and dances celebrate centuries-old customs, even as smartphones and social media connect Salvadorans to the wider world. Through it all, the people of El Salvador continue to write their own story, one of resilience, creativity, and hope. In just 100 years, this small nation has shown the world how much can change and how much can endure. The journey isn't over, and the next chapter is still being written by the hands and hearts of Salvadorans everywhere.